Cannabis is an essential industry in most states where it's legal. It will be one of the few solid economic drivers if the industry is allowed to thrive. I'm excited about this conversation with three CEOs at three stages of growth from startup to IPO who help support the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry. We're lucky to have Lawrence Horowitz today moderating this amazing panel. Take it away.
Well, hello everyone, and thank you for having us, Susan. I'm so excited to be a part of this super awesome webinar that you put together titled The Ancillary Services That Power the Industry. Like you said, my name is Lawrence or LJ Horowitz, and I'm an analyst from Entourage Effect Capital. And I'm super excited to be filling in for my coworker, Cody Sanchez, who's the best, but unfortunately she couldn't make it today. I'm hoping I could do half as well as she would do. So give me some space here, and I hope we have a really good time today. Just a little bit of background on EEC for those who aren't familiar. We're one of the first, as well as one of the largest private cannabis funds in the space. And to date, we've closed 2 funds and are currently raising our 3rd fund for $150 million. At Entourage Effect, we have a diverse portfolio of 65 different firms and focus on deals now involving distressed post-revenue companies. Switching the focus to our panelists, though, today is bound to be a fascinating conversation with 3 CEOs at 3 different stages of growth, from startup to IPO, like we've talked about, and all of whom help support the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry. Our first panelist today is CEO of Akerna, Jessica Billingsley. When the first marijuana businesses opened in Colorado, Jessica co-founded MJ Freeway Business Solutions, now known as Akerna, to fill a fast-growing need to track and manage inventory. As CEO, Billingsley and her partner made the timely decision to design a tech firm specifically for the cannabis industry. It provides a business software for point-of-sale inventory tracking, manufacturing, cultivation management, and much, much more. It also provides cannabis small business solutions for consulting services and application license support. Since its inception, the women-owned firm has been recognized in numerous major media outlets and was listed in the prestigious Inc. 5000 in 2015. And in addition, Billingsley has been named to Fortune magazine's list of top 10 most promising women entrepreneurs. Jessica, your resume truly speaks for itself, and it seems like, and I know you are, just a rock star. And our second panelist today, we have Matthew Anderson, who's the founder and CEO of Vanguard Scientific Systems. Anderson first started out by starting a small distillery in 2009, operating in the 3-tier system that controls the distillation and brewing, distribution, and sale of alcohol. In 2014, he became involved in the low THC medical cannabis initiative in Florida. Anderson also worked with a private interest group that became one of the first of 5 cannabis licenses there. Next, he became a partner with MacArthur Capital, and it was there that Vanguard became the first investment in its first fund and the first investment in their second fund. About 2 years ago, Anderson stepped away from the capital markets and managed partner side of the industry to become CEO of Vanguard. Vanguard is the premier provider of the equipment, systems, and performance solutions servicing the botanical extraction industry today. And their mission is to deliver their customers the capability to manufacture the highest quality oils, isolates, and extracts routinely and at a cost-efficient price. And now finally, our final panelist is Greg Panella, who is a United States Marine Corps veteran. Greg is a proud husband and father to 3 amazing children. He owns Stokes Ladders, a globally recognized ladder company that specializes in agricultural and niche custom ladders. He's also a commercial pear and walnut farmer, and is the founder of Integrated Hydro Solutions, which is his current venture. Integrated Hydro Solutions is a product development company specializing in system improvement for the vertical cannabis industry. He has combined his founder's background in industrial manufacturing, large-scale commercial agriculture, control systems modeling, as well as mechanical, electrical, and software engineering in multiple industries to design better systems and solutions to the vertical cannabis space. Integrated Hydro Solutions is a veteran-owned business that strongly believes in sourcing and manufacturing its products in the United States. Really exciting panel we got today. Let's get it started, and I think we're going to start with Jessica. So Jessica, first let's welcome you just to the panel and really excited to have you. Can you talk to us a little bit just about your background and, just a little bit about everything that's been going on recently with you guys?
Sure. Thank you so much, LJ. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm so honored to be here with my esteemed panelists. I thought it'd be fun to share some business intelligence information with us, with the group today as we're heading into the holiday weekend. So let me see if I can successfully share my screen here. Can we all see some slides here and not a desktop backdrop? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, good. All right, so just quickly, I think LJ covered it well in the introduction. The cannabis industry runs on Akerna. We're the technology backbone upon which the cannabis industry is built, enabling compliance, regulation, and taxation. And as we're heading into the holiday weekend, I thought it would be fun to, here, let me see if we can advance this, to look at a couple stats on how the cannabis industry has grown through our business intelligence reporting. So Americans are expected to spend more on cannabis than 4th of July cookouts this 4th of July, which is a pretty staggering thing if you think about it. So it's an 87% increase in sales over daily averages that we're expecting to see this Saturday. Of course, it's the first time that we have seen the 4th of July fall on a Saturday. In a few years. We had one on a Thursday a little bit ago, and also saw some pretty significant increases there. So what we see is that 76% of consumers will celebrate the 4th of July, and on average, each person will spend about $76. So that's on their cookouts and what they're spending to celebrate the holiday. But during the same time, cannabis consumers are expected to spend $100, which is an increase of $11 over the average order size for the rest of 2020. And of course, as we see with most holidays, flower leads significantly.
I mean, that's just crazy stuff that we're seeing there. That the fact that we think of, burgers and hot dogs and even beers as, the staples of a 4th of July weekend, but we're going to see this changing really quickly right before our eyes. And this is something that's not even going to be on a full national level yet. But I mean, that's already taking the place of the stereotypical July 4th, just weekend festivity items. So great statistics there.
It's really interesting to think about it, to rise up and kind of think about it through that lens and look at how much the industry has grown and evolved over the past few years. And maybe just looking a little bit more at that. And as we're in this interesting economic time where, as you mentioned earlier, that cannabis businesses have been deemed essential and cannabis is proving to be recession resilient, we're still seeing continued demand for cannabis. I know Cody loves to talk about the capital markets and how it in some ways it parallels the internet crash of the early 2000s, that although the capital markets lost a lot of their valuations, actual tech adoption continued to increase. We certainly are seeing that as well in cannabis, and more and more cannabis businesses are looking to understand the data as they're focusing on cash flow positivity, and they're focusing on business fundamentals and metrics. And so just kind of thinking about, okay, this period, if we think what happened in the first quarter since the beginning of COVID-19, because we've had a full quarter now to look at data. We've seen a 20% increase in all sales. We've seen a 300% increase in online orders. So businesses are adapting their delivery methods. Consumers are wanting to order in a different way. 2.5 times increase in delivery. Of course, that's not legal in all markets. So we consider that is already high, but it's also not allowed in every market. And we're also seeing an increase in order sizes, again, proving that recession resilience. And for the first time ever, we have seen female purchasers of cannabis in 2020 actually exceed male purchasers of cannabis. So pretty fascinating stat there, and goes to speak to other consumer packaged goods where women do outspend men in general, and do much of the shopping for households, at least here in the United States, here in North America. We still see pretty high average shopping cart sizes. We're actually still seeing an increase in vape sales.
Pretty interesting stuff that we're seeing there. And honestly, like we're talking about just before, breaking stereotypes, it seems that even with women increasing their average shopping cart size, that we're really just breaking stereotypes all over the place as to who the consumers are in cannabis. I know Cody loves to talk about that the consumers of cannabis today are not Cheech and Chong or, you know, your hippie uncle smoking a joint at a Grateful Dead concert. It's, you know, grandmothers, it's working women, it's working men who struggle with chronic pain, who struggle with anxiety, who struggle with treatments that don't necessarily, or with illnesses that don't necessarily work or have treatment that work from traditional methods. So it's just unbelievable to see what you guys at Akerna are showing with regards to data and how, you know, data right now is just king. So with regards to that, and really just doing an unbelievable job. And I see that you guys have your 2020 mid-year review coming up. You want to talk to us a little bit about that and what's going to be coming out with that?
Sure. So we will be releasing a business intelligence report here shortly that will give a full mid-year review of 2020, and especially focusing on the post-COVID quarter, in order to provide the industry, to provide investors, to provide governments with critical insights so that they can make good decisions for their businesses, for their policy, for their investments. And we've got a little preview here, but of course I shared some of the juiciest bits.
Great. I mean, and also we just got a question from someone live, so, and I think it's pretty pertinent, so I think we should answer it from, I don't want to disclose the person, but with the increase in online orders and advanced curbside pickup, would you say that there's been a trend for increased card services as opposed to cash sales? And what do you think that trend's going to look like, Jessica? Cash versus, you know, using a card in the industry, especially with the Safe Banking Act and things like that potentially on the horizon?
Well, certainly card services, at least merchant processing, Visa, MasterCard, are still not processing cannabis THC transactions here in the US. But certainly there are some payment services that are that do enable the effect of that cashless transaction, such as our integration partner, Hyper Payments. Of course, there are others, and we've got a couple that are integrated to our platforms, but Hyper's one that I know they do just a really great job and provide that option to be able to complete a cashless transaction. As you mentioned, at curbside, which is, of course, we've seen a huge shift toward that as a fulfillment method. Although, interesting note, in the past month plus, since some economies have been reopening some of their in-store experiences, we've seen the number of curbside orders decrease, and quite an interest in still having that in-store interactions. I think we'll continue to see both moving forward.
Good stuff. I think I'm going to switch gears a little bit, but stick with you, Jessica. Can you talk to us just a little bit about your M&A strategy at Akerna? You've been very acquisitive with deals such as Solo and Ample Organics. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you decided to acquire these two?
Sure. And great question. As the leading technology solution provider for the industry, we're confident in our strategic positioning and long-term competitive strategy. Our comprehensive suite of cloud-based integrated software solutions provides operators this technology to scale their operations and, of course, the business intelligence to increase profitability. We have invested in developing and maintaining an extensive collection of pre-built integrations that are designed to embed our solutions into leading business applications, including accounting, ERP, e-commerce, and CRM. Maintaining those integrations provides a competitive moat. So we currently have over 80 integrated products that allow us to leverage our platform infrastructure and extend the value of our ecosystem. And from that, of course, we develop some of our inorganic pipeline as well.
Okay, cool. And how would you say you structure those deals? And what was your thought process? And how do you think about acquisitions so others can learn from you and position good deals when they're presenting to you?
Our strategy is all about value creation. So we continue to position ourselves to capture a growing share of the enterprise market in the cannabis industry by focusing on aggressive organic growth and also highly complementary acquisition opportunities. So in the past, go ahead.
No, you go, you continue.
Sure. So as I mentioned, our inorganic growth strategy is built around solidifying that position as the essential technology infrastructure for the supply chain. So we target technologies that extend our software ecosystem, give us a broader reach across the supply chain, and deliver more value to our clients, the goal of which is to increase client wallet share and retention. So we think of our targets as falling into one of three channels, either TAM, total available market, expanding technology, product tuck-in, or competitor. And in each case, we pursue accretive valuations and leverage our infrastructure to create additional value.
Yeah, and we talked about how Cody's talking about how there's just a humongous capital crunch right now in the cannabis industry, even though there's usage and spending at all-time highs. Can you talk about what you see the next 3 to 6 months looking like from an acquisitions and valuation standpoint? Will you be making more acquisitions at Akerna? And what are you specifically looking for? I know we kind of talked about that a little bit already, but if you want to go into a little bit more depth there.
Sure. Right now, we're executing on the integration plans for each of our current acquisitions. Solo Sciences and Trellis are fully integrated, and we're more than 3/4 of the way through our integration plan with Ample. From our perspective, and as you alluded to, there's never been a better time to be in our position, as many smaller players in the space are finding limited access to capital, driving opportunities for us to pick and choose complementary assets at prices far below what it would take for us to build internally. So we can be opportunistic in each of these categories. Importantly, our transactions are structured in a manner whereby we are not simply buying out our targeted acquisitions. To the contrary, we're buying them in.
Great. And so, Akerna, we've talked about, you guys really, it seems like, are the backbone of the cannabis industry in a lot of ways with all the data you guys have access to. You allow for payments, seed to sale tracking, compliance, the list goes on. You see so many of the aspects of the supply chain issues that are currently existing in the cannabis industry. We talked about all the great things going on. What are some of the big pain points for companies that you've looked to solve with your services right now?
Sure. Well, we've talked about COVID. We've talked about nearly every country and state declaring cannabis essential. And our platform insights team has been hard at work analyzing our data, tracking cannabis, hemp, and CBD industry trends during the pandemic. And as we looked at here in our data points and slides earlier, what we see is encouraging. So what we see is continued increase in spending. And when it comes to those pain points, the industry has had to evolve in terms of how it meets client needs. We've talked about product pickup as a fulfillment method, but there's also virtual bud tenders, online product education. And among the ways we've been helping our clients is through technology solutions and business intelligence. Our clients are using our insights to drive that data-driven decision-making around everything from inventory management and run rates to ordering. And look, beyond the cannabis industry, we recognize what an extremely challenging time this is, particularly for those on the front lines of the crisis. Of course, our thoughts are with all of those most affected. And as I say to my team at Akerna every week, we'll get through this together.
Absolutely. I think just the final question here before we move over to Matt, and this has been great so far. What should new cannabis companies think about when it comes to their tech stack, and when do they start using a company like yours? And what are some of the big mistakes you see these companies making when they first get out of the gate?
Gosh, that's a good one too, LJ. I think the biggest mistake most companies make is focusing only on the price of the software. It's important to do an ROI analysis. Good technology should provide you way more value than it costs. We've seen new businesses especially, sign up for a lower priced offering that tracks less data points, and within a year, they've had to add reporting from a different company, loyalty from a different company yet, and now they've paid 2 to 3 times what they would have paid if they had signed up for our software ecosystem from the beginning. So it's important to think about technology needs tomorrow. It's important to look for a solution that has the proven ability to integrate and provide integrated tools. At its core, technology should help the enterprise be compliant, efficient, effective. And maybe one of the things, and it's basic, is a tech audit. I've found with these audits, you can discover ways to save employee time, better manage inventory, opportunities to consolidate apps, consolidate your technology and technology spend and get that better ROI, and better use data and business intelligence to drive those business goals. Technology is always evolving. Successful companies, they take a broad view and consider all the tools and their business needs to run effectively. This is going to include everything from content management and social media to your brand's presence and every app that your team members use. As businesses use technology to solve various business challenges, it becomes increasingly important for SaaS companies like Akerna to make it easier for businesses to maximize efficiency and lower costs by using the right tech stack.
Great answer, and I thank you so much, Jessica. I've learned so much today. So, I mean, this was great. Moving on here, Matt, looks like you got a really cool screen behind you. I'm a little jealous, but great to get started here with you. You want to walk us through, just in case anybody forgot, just a little bit more about your background and just about your current thoughts on the industry today?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Lawrence. First off, Susan, thank you so much for making this space for us to present. I really love this format. I think the speakers that are showing up to spend time with everyone here really kind of attribute to the quality of the content that you're making space for. So just awesome and fortunate to be included. And Lawrence, to Entourage Effect, for what you guys are doing in the space, providing capital availability. It's just awesome. I do have some slides I'll run through, just some hit points, but I'll give the nickel tour about myself. You said it, I came from regulated substances and regulated products. I started a liquor company when I was 21 in my garage, ended up building 2 distilleries in the United States and grew that company globally, ultimately selling it and then falling into the cannabis space. I was heavily involved in political and strategy campaigns in Florida during Senate Bill 1030, which is known as the Charlotte's Web Initiative. During that time, we ultimately were awarded one of the first 5 licenses in the most competitive state in the union. And I was gaining an opportunity to really get an understanding of what the future of this industry may look like. Regulatory oversight from the Department of Health, controlled substances of Schedule I narcotics, and the manufacturing of efficacious medicines. Really kind of let me get a level set of where the industry will be. 2.5 years ago, as you mentioned, I sat down as the CEO of Vanguard Scientific. We're a technology integrations firm. We have a design and manufacturing division in which we design future technologies to meet the needs of biotechnology and botanical extracts. And we partner with manufacturing companies such as ThyssenKrupp and a number of domestic partners to deliver specific solutions in the cannabis and hemp manufacturing space. So we work with clients that are consumer packaged goods buyers and manufacturers, nutraceutical and pharmaceutical manufacturers, and small processing entities that are looking to make their way in this great space. What I'd like to talk to everyone about today, and I'll share my screen just quickly, is kind of where the industry is currently. And maybe give some good or valuable insight to maybe where folks think it is versus actually where it is. And let me see here if I can jump into the slideshow. All right, so I'll focus most of our conversation today in the United States. Vanguard is an international firm. We're currently operating in 7 countries. So as these regulations change state to state, imagine what they're doing country to country. And until we have mutually recognized agreements that are very typical to other commodities and also pharmaceutical drugs, there's no two laws that are the same. So there's a lot of nuances around regulation, and that's where I'll spend some of my time talking. Some of the market conditions today is demand is significantly outstripping supply. Or I should say that backwards, right? Supply is significantly outstripping demand, but yet there's still unmet orders. And the reason for that is what the buyers are seeking to purchase aren't actually available in the market today. So non-differentiated and homogenized cannabinoids. What I mean by that is a myriad of manufacturers producing uniform ingredients that don't have any forms of standards or qualities are driving the industry to a commodity price floor. In states like Oregon, where our corporate offices are, you have an opportunity to secure a pound of hemp biomass for $1. In controlled states, you have to pay $150 for something along those lines. So you begin to see a complete disparity on where the industry lies, and it makes it really tough for operators to define their business. Value creation actually is an opportunity here, right? So without regulation, what happened was very interesting. You saw enforcement bringing operators out of the gray market into the regulated space. But on the buy side, there was no enforcement around standards, right? Generally recognized as safe. The nutritional panel on the back of FDA regulated products don't currently exist. So as such, the buyer and the sellers have a mismatch of their needs. And one of the things that we're seeing in this industry is we're seeing those leaders in the manufacturing space really beginning to take it upon themselves to define what good quality cannabinoids mean. Designations like USDA organic, and then also things around generally accepted agricultural practices internationally, good agricultural and collection practices, all the way through to what's known as current good manufacturing practices, or GMP, are beginning to upregulate this space into what has been seen in the FDA and other buyer markets. So I'll unpack that a little bit more as we continue to look. I want to say thank you first to Hemp Benchmarks and the folks at Alma Stone for leading our industry on commodity pricing and insights. And what we can look at here is, we've seen relative price stability coming in early during 2019, but a rapid deterioration of price. And that happened for a number of reasons. Supply chain issues around drying and material post-processing were not in place in time for early harvests. So we saw a lot of fall off from cultivators. And further, without regulations and what we call the GMP standards in place, we saw a lot of like cannabinoids being manufactured, which again drove the price down. One of the biggest things I'll say around 2020 and in 2021, being sensitive to our time here, is you're going to see a rapid divergent of marketplace. You're already seeing it internationally with the novel foods designations around hemp versus minor cannabinoids, both CBD and THC. But in the United States, I think the headline is not all oils are created equal. And you're going to continue to see that around buying preferences, buying cycles, and overall values of cannabinoids, which I'll show a little bit more here. So what does the buyer want? I think that's kind of the more than $1 million question, is folks are spending the most expensive dollars of their business on CapEx or infrastructure and equipment costs. What kind of oils do we want to make? And what are the buyers actually seeking, right? If say I've got Coca-Cola or I have Unilever on the line, how do I attract them, and how do I ultimately win the bid? And you look to other industries, right? You look to agriculture, you look to oil and gas, and you look to other consumer packaged goods brands that look to securitize natural ingredients. And it all comes from supply chain traceability and visibility. The ability for a consumer to know where it was grown, right? If you think about walking into Whole Foods and you say, this is grown local, this is USDA organic, this is kosher, and there's a good housekeeping seal of approval in some shape or fashion. Those are the same things that these buyers are looking for. But more importantly, they have to be de-risked, right? So a lot of these larger buyers today that are signing these multiple 1 to 2 to 3 year bids are in a position where they can't actually lose their original business, right? I might be making Cheerios for my day job, but I'm looking to make a CBD infused food stuff, and that ingredient can't jeopardize my core business. So things around good manufacturing practices ahead of FDA enforcement are the reasons why certain processors or certain cannabis and hemp industry actors are winning these contracts. An interesting kind of parallel to look at would be the nutraceutical industry in the early 2000s and or the pet supplement space. Pet supplements is a really interesting kind of parallel because the Food and Drug Administration only regulates for human consumption and didn't regulate for phyto, right? Even though we really, really cared that, you know, the hip dysplasia our young pup had was able to get the nutrients that he wanted through products, there was no regulation. So much like pet supplements and much like nutraceuticals, what you're seeing is those industry leaders that are winning these contracts and that are surviving this supply glut are upregulating themselves using good manufacturing practices, traceability through inventory supply, ultimately giving a buyer a confidence and de-risking their decision to choose them. A quick insight here, you can really see a number of things. This is a year basically historic, 2019 to 2020. And again, Hemp Benchmarks is the industry insight for this sort of information. A number of things to really key on here is you can look at the values significantly drop from an early developing market while you begin to see industrial seeds increase. One of the specific lines I'd ask you to look at is the remediated distillate oils. So you can see THC-free distillate oil trading at $2,000 on the average, which is roughly about $1,000 above what a traditional distilled oil product is. And for those of you that aren't elbow deep in the industry, what I mean by that is a remediated or tea-free oil is a high CBD oil that has had the THC removed or state changed to a point that meets the Farm Bill of 2018's ability to cross state lines. So now this becomes a consumer packaged good viable product that can be sold across standard retail shelves. You know, one of the headlines here as a big takeaway is good manufacturing practices combined with THC remediation are the gateways to meeting the markets as long as the price is right. And that kind of adds another layer of complexity as we come into 2020. As this industry continues to develop, there are sophisticated operators. And you could start looking at some of the economics of hemp. And this is important specifically for the great state of California, where this podcast and webinar comes from, is understanding that if you poll the audience and you poll the actual supply chain participants of manufacturing these ingredients, you can see a majority of the cultivators are producing crops that actually are more expensive to make than the market will bear for the final price. Let's say that again. There's a majority of the cultivators in the industry that cultivate their crops that are more expensive than the actual price the market will tolerate. So if you think about that, you can also begin to extrapolate what's happening all the way through the value supply chain as we begin to extract and winterize and remediate and formulate. It's a very competitive industry. And while the margins are higher than, say, growing alfalfa or growing soybeans, you have to understand your unit economics as you get into the processing space. Otherwise, you're going to manufacture non-conforming cannabinoids at a price that there's no buyer for. So kind of looking a little bit here in the future of this space and some of the main problems that plays it is there's an overproduction of an inferior supply. There's an inconsistency around seed genetics, and that's the biggest issue. So if I'm a Pepsi Cola company and I have a brand insurance patent on my logo for $6 billion, right? Every time someone cracks a Pepsi, it has to taste the same. It doesn't matter whether it's in the United States or in Asia. That is a really difficult reality to deliver right now in this industry. Without stabilized supply chains, without uniform production standards, without uniform manufacturing standards, these buyers are having a very hard time signing long-term contracts. And it's on us as the supply chain participants to de-risk them so they can give us their money, right? And another thing, the margin pressure is considerably hard. As we said, unless you're driving to these value-added products that are track and trace, that have good inventory supply and control, that meet these THC minimum standards, what you have are a homogenized and commoditized set of ingredients that can continue to face downward pressure in the market. Some of the key takeaways here, and I don't mean to be doom and gloom, but just to kind of level set for everyone that's on the webinar today, it's really critical to understand who your buyer is. We help clients that are looking to make local oils for their dispensaries that are making very high quality vape products. That's a completely different laboratory layout than someone that's looking to manufacture a small molecule drug because they have a Pfizer or a GlaxoSmithKline client that's looking to make a pharmaceutical grade product. And then again, new advancements in remediation. I think one of the biggest things that we've seen is rapid technology development. Our company, Vanguard Scientific, has a technology review board, and we're agnostic around tech. We meet with our clients and address their problem statements. And after we understand what their throughput needs are, what their target final market is, and what their budget is, we make systems recommendations. But it's really, really parallel to the computer industry. Maybe in the 90s, the processing capacity of a small Walmart matched what I've got on my laptop here today. And it's just important as you're going to spend these very important dollars that you're buying in the present, because technology is evolving incredibly fast. And we like to think that we spend our time on that leading edge. That's the quick overview that I've got, LJ, and I'm happy to have any conversation with you you'd like.
Yeah, I definitely want to be mindful for Greg's time as well, but I think we have time for a few questions that I have myself here. So, with Vanguard, you've been in a million different grows, extraction labs, processing and different operations in cannabis. What is, you would say, probably the one overarching thing that you've taken away from all of your experience that really surprises you? That someone that, is looking to enter the cannabis industry might be like, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think you got to build with the end in mind. I think we're a much better place now than we were last year, but there was a bit of a field of dreams effect. If you build it, they will come. And I think there's a lot of humility in no small case because of COVID-19 and a reality that you've got to be very precise on why you're making each capital deployment decision and each process decision. And if you don't have your buyer in mind while you're doing those actual steps, you might find yourself in a place where you've produced non-conforming cannabinoids and you're not going to have a buyer.
Makes sense. And speaking, just touching a little bit more on the extraction industry, what are some of the new top of the line technologies that exist there, and how has that really evolved over time, and what do you see coming next? Because, especially just for consumers that just don't understand it, I'd love just a little bit of background there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I love Cody and Entourage for giving me that question. So I'll put a shameless plug at the end, but I'll give you just our true opinion up front. Looking at nutraceuticals and natural ingredients legacy, past 100 years, what you've seen is a development of passive extraction technologies that don't adulterate or don't deteriorate the really important natural and minor delicate ingredients, phytometabolites that are inside of the plant. Vanguard deals with a number of modalities of extraction. We represent the leaders and suppliers across ethanol and CO2. But one of the things we would say to anyone that's seeking to make full spectrum, high quality extracts is by using supercritical and subcritical CO2 technologies, you preserve the most optionality to create the finished extracts and oils to meet your final buyer market. In regards to new technology, one thing that will actually release on Monday, and again, this is why thank you so much, Entourage Effect, from Vanguard Scientific, is a brand new remediation technology. To date, remediation, or the ability to remove THC from cannabinoids, has largely been used using repurposed pharmaceutical technologies called superfluid chromatography. And while effective, superfluid chromatography both include a limited amount of throughput per day, an incredibly high media cost, packed column media cost. Think about a Gillette razor and razor blade model, and then the final solvent recovery costs. Those were fine when you saw THC remediated products faring a $6,000 to $7,000 market premium. But as you begin to see downward facing pressure across all oils, being able to find a remediation solution that doesn't have consumable costs, that doesn't have solvent costs, and that don't have these expensive media costs are really what will represent the future of that technology. And all I can say is harmonic distillation is the answer. And watch the press news wires early next week to learn more. Thanks so much for the time, LJ.
Yeah, makes sense. And, for those looking to upgrade their extraction operation or, include that in their current operations, can you give them just a very high level overview? Like how much is that going to cost to set up? Some of the most important things to know there, and, maybe some missteps that you might not want to take if you're entering that?
Yeah, just razor specific. For clients, the way we work is we do needs-based analysis. Would love anyone to reach out to us and set up one of our senior integrators to provide a consultation. There really isn't a one size fits all. In regards to remediation, though, this piece of technology is $500,000. It's $500,000, but with no consumables or reusable costs. In comparison, what that traditionally tracks at is about 35 cents a gram using legacy technologies. So you can do the math if you're going to produce 1,000 grams a day, and you can quickly understand a return on your expense.
Great. And just one more final question before we move on to Greg, and maybe a Q&A if we have some time at the end. But you at Vanguard and just in general have looked at making acquisitions, and you've certainly had acquisition offers yourself. How do you view and value the equipment industry right now? What is the current market? Where do you see it going? And then we'll move to Greg. And
Absolutely. And I think one of the things about Vanguard is we plan to be here for the long term. If you look at Johnson & Johnson, if you look at General Electric, the reason they win, and our background's life sciences and healthcare, the reason they win is they're that connective tissue in between the major arteries, right? We come in and regardless of our superiority and equipment recommendations, which is de minimis in our opinion, it's the customer service, it's the standard operating procedures, and it's the know-how. What we were able to do from our private equity background is have a trial by doing. I mean, it's been a long 5.5 years in this space, and we've learned. God knows we've built out some of the largest multi-state operators and limited partners globally, and we haven't been perfect. But because of those hurdles, because of those challenges, and because of those learning lessons, what you get when you engage with Vanguard is a large body of learned knowledge that we love to translate. Tech transfer is the biggest part of our company. And again, my background in craft brewing and distilling, I'm here for the ability to stand up these small manufacturers so they can compete. While we might represent some of the largest companies in the industry, we also represent some of the most innovative brands producing and utilizing some of the most dynamic cannabinoids in the space. And I'm stoked inside of the cannabis and hemp space, and then also the botanical extraction space on what's coming in the near future, because I really believe this plant and other naturally occurring plants can truly save the world.
I don't think you're the only one that's stoked, Matt. So I'm very excited myself, and awesome to have you. And let's move on to last, but certainly not least, Greg Pinella. Greg, you're a veteran with a history of starting businesses in the agricultural and machinery business. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you decided to enter the wild world of cannabis, and just remind our viewers of your background before you get started? I think you're on mute, Greg, or your mic might not be working, so you might want to check that out because I can't hear you. Yeah, no problem. It's the day and age that we live in these days, everyone. Zoom panels and webinars, you can never get it perfect. Good time for a sip of water, though.
Ask Joe Biden about that. Should we do some Q&A while
Yeah,
we're waiting?
yeah, absolutely. So if any attendees right now have Q&A for, Jessica or Matthew or even myself, I'm happy to take any questions. So just write them in the Q&A chat box and we can answer them here.
There's one in there right now.
Oh, yep. Yes, we do have one for Jessica. And it's whether or not Akerna are looking to fulfill their transactional to treasury tax compliance for engineered organically, or if they would like a professional services company.
I'm actually not entirely following this. Can we maybe get a clarification, or do we have the way to have a way to? So certainly through our compliance bus that supports our various UI platforms, We certainly have the ability to support many different tax levels and tax codes for different kinds of products, different kinds of jurisdictions. For instance, if you are delivering to one county, it may be a different tax code than the county in which you're operating. That can also vary city to city. Our software does currently support that, and I know that we've been looking at different integration possibilities for continuing to update those tax codes on a regular basis. Right now we work with our clients to update them. So if this is an integration partner request, please go to our partners portal at mjplatform.com. Partners, there's a partners link and submit through there. I didn't entirely follow that question.
Yeah, no. I think definitely, Greg, is your microphone working, or do we want to pivot to something else? Okay. Not sure if we want to get more questions from the audience, but I think we just had one coming in. So the last question, there's actually a clarification that just came in. So it says,
I think we resolved. Yeah, I think we answered.
Okay, perfect. So Jessica or Matthew, do you guys want to talk a little bit more just about maybe what we're going to see with regards to legalization efforts coming through within the next year and predictions on that, if there's going to be any movement in that front?
What I would say to that is what Akerna is doing, with MJ Freeway is preparing in many ways the same as what Vanguard's doing with our quality management portfolio. And we're seeking to prepare our client partners to be ready for enforcement and regulation at a national level. What you're going to find when you see a federally regulated industry is you're going to see a number of hurdles and barriers, plus opportunities to create value to arise. And what I could just urge is those operators that are preparing for tomorrow, those operators that have dry powder and that are facing this doldrums, this period of the capital crunch, as you mentioned, just be ready to really take advantage of this expanded market. We saw Adam Smith earlier today present the Alliance for Sensible Markets, and what they're pushing for is state-by-state compacts, which will arguably lead the way to legalization nationally. And with that will come a large amount of responsibility. So I just think that it's really, really impressive to be here on this stage today and to see Jessica and to see the other participants as their companies have evolved and as the things that they were so passionate about 3 to 5 years ago continue to mature, because it's really a testament to where the industry is going.
Absolutely. I mean, I've definitely enjoyed it. Any update, Greg, or are we still?
Can you hear me now?
Yep. We're definitely getting a focus on you now. Greg, happy to have you on here. Like I said before, you're a veteran with just a history of starting businesses all over the agriculture and machinery space. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you entered the cannabis business and, just give some background on yourself in case the viewers forgot. And, I just want to apologize to everyone again, for the technical difficulties.
Yeah, sorry about those difficulties there. And thank you for the introduction, LJ and Susan, for having us here. Yeah, I am a Marine combat veteran, father of 3 great, crazy, slightly feral children. I'm involved in the large-scale agriculture industry as well as manufacturing. So I kind of have a diverse background that helps me see some issues in specifically the vertical cannabis growing space that we're working on. So what got me into the cannabis space is I have a really good friend that I served with in the Marine Corps, and when he got out, he started having some really, really serious mental issues. He went to the VA. They put him on every pill known to man. They weren't working for him. His wife left him. He has 2 beautiful children with his lady, and I was watching his life just, he was hooked on opioid pain pills. His life was going down the drain. And funny story, he was bored in his house one day. It was snowing. He was hooked on pills, so he had nothing better to do. He went outside and he started shoveling snow. And he got finished with his driveway and went to his neighbor's and shoveled her driveway. And she came by later to thank him and pay him with a little nug of weed, which he had never used before. So he thought, oh, cool, I'll just take this and I'll trade it for some pills at some point later down the road. Well, later that night, he was sitting in his house and he was bored watching a documentary on the construction of the Hoover Dam. And he ended up smoking the cannabis. And for the first time in his life, things made sense in his head, and he was calm and relaxed and realized he might be onto something. So he ended up using cannabis on a regular basis. He got rid of all the pills, all the anxiety issues, actually remarried his ex-wife, turned into super dad. He's, stay-at-home super dad. They're actually coming out in a little bit to come visit us. They're doing it. Totally turns life around. It saved his life. So seeing the effect it can have in a person with so many issues that the standard pharmacy options just weren't working, that really opened my eyes.
I mean, I definitely understand, and I've seen it, just absolutely change the lives of some people, and it's definitely one of the reasons why I'm in the industry as well. But beyond your personal story, what opportunity or opportunities did you see or do you see in this industry right now?
Well, I think the opportunities are endless, really. I think as the market develops and the margins come down for the growers, they're going to be looking to reduce their cost of goods sold. So they're going to be trying to get the most efficient method out there to get per pound of cannabis. So, they're going to be looking for better ways to grow, and that's what our company focuses on, is better systems for the vertical growing space.
Yeah, speaking about some of the things your company has created, so you've come up with some interesting technology for cultivators. Can you talk about it just a little bit more in depth, and what's the difference between what you create and what others are creating, and why you created it, and what the feedback has been so far for your product and for your company?
Okay, good question. So the vertical growing space on the scale it is today, I believe is kind of really in its infancy stages still. There's quite a few products out there that have been converted from other industries and brought into the vertical growth space. I think in order for the market to reach its full potential, the operators need equipment and systems that are designed specifically for large scale vertical cannabis grows. So, I was born in Northern California in an area which has been dubbed the Emerald Triangle. Cannabis growers, they've been growing for generations here, and they know what they're doing. They yield a very consistently good product. And I was approached with a very unique opportunity to partner with some of these local cannabis growers who wanted to transition to vertical farming. They approached me to see if I had any ideas on what could make the vertical system better. And I started looking into the industry and saw what was available on the market, and a light bulb just went off in my head. I already have a manufacturing facility, so we have the capacity for that. I'm a commercial tree fruit grower, so I understand horticultural practices and labor issues. And I saw this as a unique opportunity to use my background knowledge to create a product development company specializing in system improvements for the vertical cannabis space. So I asked my good friend Lee Zaleski, he's a brilliant engineer, to join me on this venture. Together, we created Integrated Hydro Solutions. We're a product development company specializing in system improvements and better products for the vertical growth space. So we use our network with these growers to create our own prototype incubator, essentially by working with the growers during the design and implementation phase, using real-time industry feedback to help develop our products and our intellectual property. So we started out small. We made a set of vertical mobile racks. The growers really liked them. They work really good. We designed these specifically with high-end components as well as ease of use for the operators in mind. The next product that we're pretty excited about, I can't go into a whole lot of detail. We're in the process of our provisional patent application, but what it essentially does, it's a growing solution, and we came up with it by integrating multiple systems that are already in place into one streamlined product. So we're working on that, and we're also working on developing a better system for accessing the upper tiers while maintaining OSHA compliance with regards to worker safety.
It's just definitely some really interesting stuff there and impressive things. It's clear that, Greg, you've built a few businesses through bootstrapping and then leveraging the sales from one business that you start to get into another. Can you talk to us a little bit about your strategies there and, maybe just some advice for some of the entrepreneurs that are listening here and might be having a hard time raising capital during this crazy time and need to bootstrap themselves?
Yeah. So for other entrepreneurs out there looking to get into some sort of business, my approach is a little different than a lot. I never went out looking for investors. What I did was I purchased a company with a proven track record and cash flow. So, you do need equity to get to that point. So, save up, get a house or a piece of property that you could leverage to maybe purchase a company. And I think right now is actually a really good time to purchase companies. I think there's a lot of baby boomers out there who, as we go through this COVID pandemic, sales are dropping off. Things aren't great in the business world. So it's probably a really good time to buy a business that's owned by a baby boomer who's looking to get out while they still can. So if you buy a company with a proven track record, you get all their clientele, you get the cash flow, and this allows you to get comfortable in the business world. It's a little safer bet. So you have this cash flow, and first you want to invest that back into the company, get things up and running the way you want them, a little more efficient. After that, it's really kind of step back and look where your cash flow is most effective. So is it investing back into your original company, or is it taking that capital and moving off into another direction that you're interested to go?
Super valuable information. And, Greg, I hate to step on your toes here, but Cody also is going to be releasing a video tomorrow about the exact same thing, just how to bootstrap yourself and, really pick yourself up as an entrepreneur during these times tomorrow on LinkedIn. So that should be really interesting. I just really want to thank you and all the other panelists today for participating in what was such a really in-depth and informative panel and really interesting. And a humongous thank you to Susan for providing this platform to help spread, the ever important knowledge of cannabis business. It was such an honor to fill in for Cody, and I'm, thankful for the audience for putting up with some of our difficulties and, allowing me to moderate. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.